Welcome to Frankly Speaking. My name is Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. We're coming to you live from Auckland Park here at the SABC in Johannesburg. Can you believe it? What a week it has been in South Africa with Umsholos, Ubaba, playing chess, or even Raba with the ANC leadership. But they are all saying to us, no, don't worry. Just take it easy. Be patient. Because, of course, South Africans are impatient for action. Some of them quite fed up with the last 10 years, wanting something new to come out of this. Of course, if it breaks tonight, we will bring it to you live here on Frankly Speaking. But here we're going to be cutting through the clutter of politics. We're going to be talking to political leaders. We're going to be talking to civic society leaders and business leaders and answering the question, what are we doing to build on the legacy of Nelson Mandela? 28 years ago, he walked out of Victor Verster prison. And my question is, since that seminal moment, what have we done to build on his dream and make sure that it is not deferred? He spoke at the Grand Parade and said that I'm not a prophet, but I'm a servant of the people. How many of our leaders can say that with conviction, that they are servants of our people? Well, one of them is here tonight, Chief Justice Mogoeng, who we are going to be talking to just now. I dedicate this show to my dear mother, Helen Mapako Tabane, who died this morning. Yesterday I spoke to her and she said, my son, I hope you're not going to drop your radio thing with this TV thing that you are doing, but we'll be watching. I know she's watching wherever she is, and may her soul rest in peace. Join me now. Come, let's talk to the Chief Justice. Thank you so much, Chief Justice, for agreeing to be my first guest on this brand new show, Frankly Speaking. I really feel blessed that you have agreed to do this.
Thank you for the invite. I suppose duty called. Thank
you so much. You know, Nelson Mandela, today is a very historic day. And the question really is, what do you think, if you were to pick one thing that is linked to the Constitution, linked to the judiciary, that you would say this is Mandela's legacy that we need to be dealing with, we need to be working around to achieve?
Remember, Nelson Mandela was a lawyer of note for that matter. One of the things that he did, which is the heritage we must hold on to, was to ensure that the Constitutional Court of South Africa was established. And opening that court, he said, make sure that you do not reduce yourselves to the level of a rubber stamp of whatever the executive and the legislature is doing. That legacy lives on, for not only has the Constitutional Court together with the rest of the South African judiciary ensured that constitutionalism, the rule of law, thrives in South Africa, the human rights culture is entrenched, but we have also made sure that the possibilities that our constitutional dispensation have created for the South African judiciary are exported, and I say it with all sense of humility, to the rest of Africa and beyond the shores of Africa.
But the judiciary, by the way, played a role, no small role, in actually chaining Mandela for 27 years. Do you think the judiciary, in a way it has conducted itself since he walked out of prison, has atoned in a manner that it has conducted itself? Secondly, whether it is transforming fast enough? What are the things you can share with me in that regard?
Well, one, we made sure that judicial independence is entrenched. We made sure that the rule of law is not only promoted but also observed. We made sure that the judiciary is recognized, not just as one of the government units or state institutions, but as a third arm of the state in the true sense. And that is why so much good has come out of the role, the critical role, I might say, that the South African judiciary has been able to play. Just to mention but some, ever since we took over the presidency of the Conference of Constitutional Jurisdictions of Africa, as the South African judiciary and as the leading judiciary in that structure, we've been able to intervene quite decisively in the African continent as and when there was a need for us to do so. We've always been worried that it's not enough that the judiciary, being the third arm of the state, it has a voice, it has a role only at a national level. It's of critical importance that, knowing the challenges that confront Africa, the judiciary has a role to play at a regional level, your SADC, at a continental level, and globally. And happily, for the first time in the history of Africa, precisely because of Mandela's legacy, I was privileged to be invited at the last summit of the African heads of state to represent the African judiciaries there. And guess what? In the Nelson Mandela Plenary Hall at the African Union headquarters, just so that the judiciary can be best placed to contribute to its...
But has it changed in a manner that it can, in a sense, take that role of being a catalyst for change?
Absolutely. Listen to this. I'm saying the judiciary of South Africa has not only changed meaningfully and visibly in South Africa, but continentally. What am I saying? I'm saying, for the first time, precisely because of the impact we have made, we were invited to attend the meeting of the heads of courts. I beg your pardon, I say heads of court because I function here. Heads of state.
Heads of state, yes.
In Addis Ababa, to see how that body functions. And now they have not only adopted 2018 or declared 2018 as Nelson Mandela's year, the AU itself, but it has also adopted as a theme winning the fight against corruption. The champion for that theme said the judiciary of Africa has a critical role to play in ensuring that corruption is uprooted.
But in the South African context, do you have systems in place where you are sitting to be able to root out the bad apple? I mean, we've had to deal with the likes of Judge Mabel, who rendered out racist things and so on. And people feel vulnerable if they're going to stand in front of a judge like that. While you may be looking at the global picture of change, do you have systems in place to root out, judges and so on who, in a sense, still operate in the mold of pre-1994?
Before the Mandela government, we did not have a system in place to hold judges accountable. It is part of his legacy that we now have the Judicial Service Commission with structures capacitated to deal with incidents such as the one you've referred to. By the way, it was precisely because of the Judicial Service Commission's intervention that the judge you're referring to, after appearing before it, ultimately decided to resign.
I'm going to talk a little bit about judicial overreach and the balance of your job vis-a-vis the other two elements of the state, which is the judiciary, rather the legislature and the executive. But let's take a break now. After the break, we continue with our conversation with Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng.
corruption both in the public and the private sectors needs to be combated.
Where there are clear cases of wrong that has been done, that must commence immediately.
Something is being done about corruption in our country.
Currency, even although it's strengthened dramatically after the ANC's recent electoral conference, could conceivably go stronger yet.
He had a soul that would not be for sale.
Stay tuned to Your World for your final news roundup, Monday to Sunday at 21:30.
Welcome to Media Monitor, the show that analyzes the big news stories that made headlines. We bring you robust discussions on stories that made headlines in the week, where we interact with media analysts to unpack these top stories. Join me every Sunday morning from 9 to 10 Central African Time as I bring you riveting news and analysis.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking with me, Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. If you just joined us, our new show tonight, coming to you live from Auckland Park, and we are talking to the Chief Justice. You can follow us, of course, on Twitter using the hashtag Frankly Speaking. You can tweet us at JJ Tabane. You can also tweet us at SABC News Online. Chief Justice, the whole issue of what we call judicial overreach has been in our almost political lexicon now for a while now. How do you give us a sense of peace and comfort about the fact that the judiciary is not really going a bridge too far or a step too far in the work that actually belongs to the executive or the legislature, in your view?
Remember, we have lawyers all around, and those litigating before our courts have the benefit of legal advice, with the result that if we do veer off the mark, you will see commentary to that effect from lawyers and even those politicians who would have taken legal advice from their lawyers. But more importantly, we as the judiciary, because we want to protect our institution, we will speak out when we believe that there is judicial overreach. But broadly speaking, courts have been very careful to stay within their prescribed parameters.
It seems that worried you, because a couple of years ago you actually called for a meeting with the president where there was a lot of attacks, the ANC leaders and SACP leaders saying that you are counter-revolutionary and the judicial overreach coming out hugely as a big issue. Has there been improvement in terms of how you perceive the relationship between judiciary and the executive since then, Chief Justice?
That meeting has proved to be very, very important, because ever since, I'm sure you've been monitoring the developments in the public domain, we haven't come across a series of attacks such as were happening at the time, suggesting that the judiciary is overreaching. The meeting was very frank. Nobody pulled back the punches. We are very open to one another, came up with an understanding, and ever since, we've since had a meeting as well with the legislature, and it has proved to be a very fruitful meeting that we had.
A lot of people, given what is happening, especially where there's the scourge of corruption, feeling that the judiciary is almost like the last line of defense for society. What is your feeling about our moral stature as a society, especially when you compare to the times when Mandela was giving this country a leap of hope?
The sense that one gets is that things have gone wrong, and we all need to act very decisively against any wrongdoing.
And do you believe that there is still hope in pushing back to make sure that everyone is able to stick to a particular moral compass and moral framework, or not?
Look, I think the starting point is who puts everybody where they are. As judges, there is an institution that puts us in the positions that we occupy, inviting the public to say whether we are corrupt or people of high moral character. Similarly, when people elect their public representatives, it is their business not to outsource their right, their obligation to think, but to reflect properly on the kind of people that they are voting into office. So that at the end of the day, they don't have any reason to point a finger at anybody. They would have to say, well, but we elected these people into office. If anybody be to blame, then we are to blame.
Coming back to the judges themselves, there was a lot of criticism when you were appointed, and quite apart from the fact that people thought you were going to be Jacob Zuma's lackey and what have you. Hopefully you have disappointed many. But they were worried about your public stance about being a Christian. You are a pastor in your own church and so on. And in fact, some of your colleagues even criticized you for stating that publicly. How do you balance your own personal conviction as a Christian, as a man of the cloth, and being the top jurist in this country? How do you strike that balance?
It's all about integrity. At the end of the day, it's either you're a person of integrity, a person with a solid character, or not. If you're a person of integrity, by the time you take your oath of office, you know that you are entering into a covenant with a nation, promising to do exactly what your oath of office or your affirmation is saying. So, and that is where I stand. I'm a Christian. I'm not going to be apologetic about it. But if the constitution of the country and if the laws of the country requires of me to do a particular thing, I'm not going to pretend that the constitution means something different from what it is saying.
In other words, your Christianity is subservient to the constitution?
I took an oath. I took an oath. I will do exactly what the Constitution requires of me. I'll do exactly what the law requires of me to do. And that is what everybody should do. We mustn't corrupt the system by forcing the Constitution and the law to say something different from what it actually means. We've got to be truthful people, dependable people, trustworthy people.
Talking about,
that's where I stand. That is why when cases involving homosexuality, for instance, came before us, my responsibility was to check, what does the Constitution say? What does the
Not to
law
refer
say?
to your own set of Christian values.
That's corrupting the system. Do what the Constitution and the law says. Do what you promise to do in terms of your oath of office, or else resign.
Talking about corrupting the system, Zukile on Twitter is saying, does the South African Constitution allow ANC to give Zuma immunity? Now, can you deal with that? Because that's the current issue. People are nervous that in view of wanting to lay a good path between the transitions, between the two governments, the outgoing and the incoming, there may be a temptation to try and turn a blind eye and provoke or invoke some immunity. Can you tell us once and for all, as the top jurist, that would such a thing be allowable in our Constitution?
Well, that's a question I would like to pass. I'll tell you why. There's been a lot of discussion about it, and I saw at least one political party say that they are likely to challenge it if it were to be done. So the likelihood is that
it may
if
come
it
before
were
you.
to be done, it will come before us. And one must just be careful not to venture into controversial
Do you think we're in a
areas.
constitutional crisis, though, given the fact that there seems to be a state of limbo with the president wanting to leave, wanting to stay? Do you think there's a constitutional crisis, or there's none? 24 years on, it's the first time we have a postponement of the State of the Nation address. That may affect the budget. It may affect many other decisions that may bring the country maybe to some kind of a limbo. Are we in a constitutional crisis or not?
I say no more than this. It looks like there are serious challenges that confront the leadership of the ruling party and functionaries within the executive and the legislature. There seems to be serious problems there.
That's all you can say now. You anticipate the matter may come before you.
Well, that's all that it's appropriate for me to say.
Do you think, I know you've emphasized a lot about doing the right things, do you think that the state, the executive, right, has a way in which it can ignore court judgments? And if you have made a judgment, like we've seen with the SASSA matter, like we've seen with the Bashir matter, and the state simply does the opposite, in the glare of what is correct, what can ordinary citizens do to enforce such a thing? Because sometimes there's a sense of helplessness, especially with the track record of what we have seen over the last couple of years.
You see, the rule of law has been so promoted and so observed, broadly speaking, in this country, that when it comes to flouting or non-compliance with court orders, you have very few cases to refer to. You can refer me to al-Bashir, but what else? In SASA, the Constitutional Court order was not flouted. People came and said...
Well, they want an extension now.
Of course, precisely because they must obey. They can't just sit back and say, we're going to do as
nothing.
we please.
So they can come and
must
plead
come
for an
and
extension.
Seek permission. That's how the system is supposed to work.
A lot of people are saying you're extremely harsh, and that's where the judicial review come with Minister Wathabile to actually pronounce from the bench on a detail of a minister being incompetent.
Well, it was more of a question. It was more of a question. I needed to know, are we dealing with incompetence? What is it? In fact, it was a question to counsel. I said, why can't you answer this question and make as if, or make your minister, your client to look like she's incompetent? But the truth be told, if it becomes necessary for us to make that pronouncement, we will not hesitate to do so.
Yeah, a lot of people, and I want to deal with this because a lot of people, especially in the last 20 years, they found that there's a lot of cases that have to do with first-generation rights. Would you say that South Africa is taking advantage of having a constitution that actually gives them second-generation rights? And are you doing something to educate people about how they can access justice easier? Because people have a sense that it's for the rich. If you are rich, you can have big lawyers and you can escape justice. And when you are poor, you could just thrown in jail, on a technicality, and etc.
One of the most serious disservice that we have done to our people is not to educate them enough about the Constitution. That is why there is very little understanding about what the courts are all about. Very little understanding indeed. Many believe that courts are subservient to the executive, subservient to the legislature. People don't know their rights, and if you don't know your rights, you can't even begin to try to enforce them.
But you see, that's your job to educate people about what those rights are.
No. Our job is to educate people about their rights in their judgments, and when invited, like here, when we are given the opportunity to explain to them, when we deliver lectures.
All right, I want to explore that a little bit.
The primary responsibility, I think, is with the media.
We'll explore that a little bit after the break. Let's go to a break now. We're talking to the Chief Justice. Stay tuned for some more conversation straight after this. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking with me, JJ Daban. We're coming to you live from Auckland Park here at the SABC, and my guest tonight, the Chief Justice. Chief Justice, I'm not convinced about your answer about education, because I would expect that magistrate courts, judges and so on must be more proactive about educating people about the law. That would be more believable than if the Department of Justice goes around, because it's going to be tainted with politics and what have you. Do you think we should be doing more to educate people?
No, you must invite us more. You must invite lawyers more.
Okay.
You must invite magistrates more on radio, on television.
They're not afraid to talk.
Of course. So that we can educate our people about their rights. We need a platform from which to speak, assured that information will be quickly disseminated about the people's rights and how to access them. What about those who don't have the money to give practical expression to their rights? What are they supposed to do? There isn't much time dedicated to educating people about their rights. When I say the media, I mean the media creating the platform for the judges, magistrates and lawyers and the academia to teach the public about their rights and allow them to ask questions so that they can understand the system better.
Chief Justice, I really hoped we would have had more time. But what is your parting shot to South Africa about the state of our nation right now, given everything that you know that's been happening over the last couple of days?
Everywhere around the world, when systems do not appear to work, you've got to have a reason to be comforted when you have a functional, truly independent and effective judiciary. I believe that we are turning a corner, a critical corner, towards realizing the South Africa that we've been yearning for all this long. Already, our parliament have already demonstrated its capacity to call to account a number of institutions that it previously did not look like it had the capacity to call to account. Parliament has been very effective. I have no doubt that the executive will follow and be as effective as the South African public require of it to be. It was a learning curve. Most of the problems that we are experiencing now have been experienced by older democracy, including the United States of America.
Thank you so much, Chief Justice, for the time that you've spared with us, and thank you for blessing this show, for being our first guest here tonight. I wish you all the best with the work that you're doing for South Africa.
Thank you.
That was our first edition of Frankly Speaking. We don't have much time today to go through your tweets, but next week, I promise you, we're going to be connecting with you through Skype and WhatsApp videos and you name it. Stay tuned for more here on SABC 3, and of course, all of our viewers from all over the continent. Until we talk frankly again, may God bless you.